Hey, welcome back to class. Today's the fun part. We're going to start doing our sewing, making our scrunchie. So you should have your fabric available for you. Now, before we get started, I wanted to tell you a couple things. This is the right side of the fabric. This is the wrong side of the fabric. So if you can look at your fabric, some fabrics are kind of hard to tell. But hopefully you have one that's nice and easy. So this is just what I chose. And if you stay till the end, we're going to do an extra free bonus project that's kind of cool. We're going to make our own infinity scarf because it's pretty similar to this. So I thought, why not just throw in an extra activity for you? You might need to get some more fabric, but it'll be a cool little thing that you can wear and it'll match your hair scrunchie. So right side of the fabric or wrong side of the fabric. And there are some tools that I wanted to teach you first. This is a rotary cutter. Be really careful with these if you ever decide to use them. They're really good for quilting. I usually use stretch fabric. So this has a little bit more of a drag on it, but my mom uses these all the time. You can kind of slip up the blade and bring it back down for safety. But it's always good to wear a glove to protect your hand. They scare me, so I don't really use them that much because they can slice pretty good, but they're really nice and easy though. They really are nice. They can go around curves. Sometimes they can fit through little grids. Like if you want to cut straight lines, they can fit through a grid. That kind of helps you just do it that way. I use this tool. I make a lot of bathing suit straps. And you kind of put the fabric through it and then put it through the tube, and then it helps turn the tube inside out. But we're going to make our own little scrunchie turner because you might not have one of these to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our thread. Our ribbon. We should have 2.5 yards of this ribbon. And when you measure it, just go ahead. 3 feet is a yard. So we need 2.5 yards. So 3 times 2.5. And we're going to take that. And this is the easiest way I think to do it, is you match up those two ends after you cut it. So if you need to pause the video as we go along, now would be a good time to pause it, measure out your ribbon, and then we'll continue on. So if you have your ribbon cut in 2.5 yards, go ahead and just flip it over so you have exact half and just cut it right there. It's going to be a time saver. So just go ahead and cut it. So now you got 2 ends. What we're going to do next is we are going to take our safety pins. You should have 2 safety pins, and you're going to slide it through the end of the ribbon. Make sure you give yourself a little bit extra so it's not right at the tip, because sometimes these ribbons will fray, which means they kind of fall apart. And then you're going to do the same on the elastic. You should have 1/4 inch elastic. It should be a 10-inch piece. So you just slide it through. Careful not to poke your fingers because that happens sometimes. So just poke it through, and then you're going to close your safety pin. So you got that. And we're going to do that on the other end. So whenever you need to pause it to catch up, go ahead and do that. So take your other safety pin. Doesn't matter if you do the elastic first or the ribbon first. So this time I'm just going to do the elastic first, and make sure, sometimes you get a little confused. You might do the end of the one you already did. So make sure they're separate, and just do the same on that side. And this is going to help us with our scrunchie to turn it inside out. Makes it so much easier. So after we do that, you should have your fabric cut. And for your fabric, you're going to want 5 inches wide. So you're going to measure across, and then 42 inches long. And sometimes what can make it easier is if you fold your fabric and cut it, because usually it comes off the bolt where it's already folded into 2 layers. So if you can kind of just cut it, and 42 divided by 2 is 21. So you can cut 5 inches across. I always cut a nice fresh edge. So you do, you measure up 21 inches because it's 2 layers. But make sure when you do that, that this side, the folded side, is pretty much at the bottom where you're cutting. Because if you do it the wrong way, you're just going to have 2 strips of fabric. So make sure you do it the correct way, or you can open it all up, but that's kind of hard sometimes to do. So it's better just to cut it in half. And then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to lay our bungee turner along the right side of our fabric. So remember, the right side is the patterned side. So just have the edge kind of sticking out a little bit of your ribbon and just lay it across. It's a pretty long piece of fabric. So when you're at the end, after you lay that ribbon portion, just one side of the ribbon, you should have the elastic on the outside. So then what we're going to do is we're going to fold the right sides together. So you have that little ribbon kind of sticking in the middle. And as you sew, just be careful not to sew onto that ribbon. If you want to sneak your little finger in there to kind of keep it, or double check as you sew. I often don't use pins. I was always taught to use pins. Sometimes you need to, but if you can get in the habit, professional people don't usually use pins. So if you want to try this without pinning it, or if you're a little more comfortable to where you want to pin all along the way, that might be easier for you. That's up to you. Just be careful not to sew over the pins, because you don't want to break your needle. You also don't want to damage your item. So now that we have our scrunchy turner and the safety pin should be out, and we're ready to sew. So make sure you have your machine loaded up. If you'd like to pause the video now, you may. You can always rewind if you need to catch up or review. So you have that bungee turner, and you're going to put your two right sides together and just kind of slip it into the presser foot. So the presser foot is pretty much have it on the edge of it. So that'll be our guide for our seam allowance. So let's get sewing. You can sew along with me. Like I said, make sure that that ribbon is kind of tucked in that middle, and you can use either a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. This for this project, it really doesn't matter. So you can adjust. This is where mine is. You can adjust whether it's a zigzag or a straight stitch. Zigzags are better for stretch fabrics. And then sometimes I'll double stitch. I'll just go over it twice. If it's like a leotard, I want to make sure it doesn't break. But a hair scrunchie should be okay for this one. So as we start, you got it all loaded up. All right, so we're going to just take a couple steps forward with the machine. And then we want to use our reverse. This is where mine is. And I reverse a couple steps and then just start going forward again. So you can do it with me, or you can watch as I do the project. So then you just, as you go along, I just make sure mine match up, or you can have it pinned and have it match up. So we're just going to go all the way down. And sorry, my machine's a little loud. I have an this is a high-speed one. This isn't my commercial one, but I've really liked it. Can't remember, it was like $250, $300, $280, but it's a lot faster. So if you do start doing a lot of sewing, it's a Singer heavy duty. I'm not trying to endorse them, but that's what I use. So just hold your fabric in place so it doesn't slip slide around. Control your fabric. And just use that presser foot as your guide. It should be all the way on the fabric. We're just going to complete this. You got the ribbon. And I'm almost done with this, so bear with me. Nice and easy. This is a cool project. And then we got that little tail. So kind of pull that little tail out a little bit so you got some control over it. And continue on. And then back stitch at the end. Make sure you back stitch. That's very, very important. A lot of times your project will fall apart if you don't do that. So have both ends of the ribbon in your hand. Make sure you clip the threads when you're done. You're going to have the top and bottom threads that you're going to close. So you have both ends in your hands, and you're just going to pull on one side, the side that does not have the elastic. So on the elastic part, you're going to have to kind of tuck it in and kind of work with it a little bit. So let that elastic get on the inside and just start pulling it down. So there's that elastic, and now it's inside out. See how easy that was to turn inside out? You got the right side. So now we have this. We got to get that elastic into the middle of our scrunchie. So use your mind. Which ribbon do we need to pull on to get the elastic into the tube? This side. Yeah. So what we're going to do is make sure you hold on to this, pinch it tight, and just kind of work it back through. Where you kind of see how it pops right back out. So kind of bunch it up a little bit and then pull this way. So now you have your elastic. You can see your elastic coming out. And now what we're going to do is make sure you do not lose your elastic. Hold on to both pieces of elastic with your fingers. So it gets a little difficult, you just got to make sure you're holding on to that. So you have your elastic. Go ahead and remove the safety pins without losing that elastic. Be careful not to poke yourself. And I got an extra thread. Sometimes you might need to cut some threads. So there's that piece. This side I need to take off the other. It's good to kind of pinch it through your fingers. Take off that safety pin because we don't need that ribbon anymore. That was just to turn it. And I should probably close those up right away. So you have your elastic. Now you're going to take these two edges and you're just going to tie a nice knot. So you're going to cross it, loop it around, and cross it and loop it through. Whoops. And then give it a nice snug tug. Just to make sure it's nice and tight. And I like to do one more tie. So do one more tie through it, just to give it an extra. There you go. So now you have that nice tie. And what you can do is you can just kind of push it in. I wouldn't necessarily clip. You can clip some of it, but if it pulls, it's good to have the extra sticking out. So now we have this. We don't want this in our hair looking like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to tuck in this chunky part, just kind of work it around a little bit. And we're almost done. So now you have the fabric. You have the fabric right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and flip it under, kind of make like a little seam, kind of like that. You got a nice little seam and it's tucked under, and do that on the other side as well. So you're going to tuck it under and then kind of put it together, kind of match those up. And then you're going to use a hand stitching needle and you're going to sew through. So those are just your basic needles. You have your basic needle with the hole in it. And I'm going to show you, I like to double mine. So I feed it through and loop it back down. And this is a trick that you can use to tie your thread. So you're going to take your finger and you're going to wrap it around. See how it's kind of crossed? A little hard to do backwards. So you have it crossed. Just make like an X on your finger. And then you're going to squiggle it up, just kind of rub it up, rub it down, rub it up. And then with your nail, pinch it. And then sometimes it works right away, sometimes it doesn't, but there you go. It just turns into a knot sometimes. And of course, it's because I'm at a different angle. There you go. So there you have that knot. You can clip a little bit of the thread, or you can just tie a knot. That's up to you how you want to do it. And like I said, I like to double layer my thread. So get your thread ready and then kind of tuck, go